Recording in progress.
I didn't say we will meet. I said
Good evening. It is Wednesday, March 22nd, 2023. And I need to fix an audio issue here.
like the third day of spring.
All right, welcome to City Council meeting. All members of the council are present. We're also joined by the mayor, various officers from his staff, council office staff, and a number of members of the public. To start off with, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Marcia Lancaster.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Marcia. We will start tonight's meeting with public comment. If there's anybody who would like to speak to the City Council, now is the time to do so. If you're attending online, hit the little hand icon to let me know that you'd like to speak. If you're here in person, you'll be welcome to come up to the podium here in just a second. We do want to remind you that during public comment, the council doesn't typically respond. This is our time to sit and listen to hear what you have to say. We do have one public hearing later on tonight. That's about the tree height question. So if you're wanting to speak with that, we would encourage you to wait until that point. If you're not able to wait till that point, you are able to come and speak during citizen comments though. With that said, I don't see anybody online who's raised their hand. Is there anybody here who would like to address the city council? Oh, sorry, Councilmember Stewart. We're going to start with you. Please come to the podium.
Well, thank you for letting me take just a quick minute. So I'm Sheldon Stewart. I'm from the Salt Lake County Council. I actually represent a good portion of West Jordan. And so I'm District 5, if you're familiar with that. So it's basically encompasses most of your western portion. It kind of has this weird diagonal line that follows it's a weird boundary. I'll just say that much instead of trying to describe it. One of the goals that I set when I got elected, so I just took office in January, was that on a routine basis, I would be out to the cities just to let you know kind of, hey, what we're working on, where we're headed, and the things that we're doing, and then see if there's areas that I can go back and kind of work for you towards. So Kim Coleman, who's my senior policy advisor, is there. But I just wanted to let you know that. I know that we worked really hard on a couple bills. I think that's where we've been the most successful is we also try and work through the state using some lobbying efforts. One of the big ones that we worked on hard that I think West Jordan is very interested in is what we did with HB 374. I don't know how many you're familiar with that, but this is the bill that removes the county out of UPD, Unified Police Department. And there's more to come on that, but there has been some definite concerns with double taxation. And so that was something we pushed. And so now those efforts with shared services will move into the county, and that oversight will actually occur with the county council. So instead of having UPD direct the efforts of those. So that's probably the big one that I'd mention that I've been working on. Like said, I've only been there about 2.5 months, so there's a lot that we've been working through. We are working on a number of different issues. You all should have received an email related to strategic priorities that were set, at least by the caucus that I participate in. And so from there, I'll just open it up, see if there is any things that I can take from your council and start working on or looking at from your perspective. Or at least just saying hi, so you know who I am and now you know how to reach me.
So it's definitely good to be able to see you here face to face. I'm not seeing any, oh, Councilmember Whitelock.
I just want to thank you for your work and welcome you to our city. And I'm happy that you want to come occasionally. It'll be great to have you come and share what's going on at the county. The mayor does send us a letter usually, but I'm sure that you have some additional information that would be helpful. So thank you.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely work on that. Anything else? Okay. Zach's probably the most familiar face that I've got here, but hopefully I'll get more familiar with all your faces. So thank you.
Thank you for joining, and always welcome to attend.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, Anne Marie.
Hello. Yes, it's great to be back. I'm Anne Marie Barrett, the manager of the Bingham Creek Library. I'm just here to let you guys know about something really cool, a new partnership. We're partnering with the Red Cross to have a blood drive at the Bingham Creek Library on April 7th from 10 o'clock until 3 o'clock in the evening. That's Friday during the day. And we just want to make sure that that we're able to make sure that our community have access to the resources they need, particularly the hospitals. I personally have a very close tie myself to seeing how blood banks can save lives. My own mother had a very serious hemorrhage issue with my last little sister, and yeah, blood banks save lives. So if there's anybody who would be interested in coming, it's here, it's in the community. It should hopefully be a very convenient location for everyone, making it easy to help other members of our community. So you can actually register in advance on our website. It's just on our calendar. You click the link and you go in and just sign up for the Bingham Creek Library blood drive. So thank you so much. And thank you for all you do. Seriously, I just love being part of the West Jordan community. It's a great, great place to work and wonderful people to work with. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to address the council this evening? And checking once more online, not seeing anyone. I will close the public comment period and we will move on to reports to the city council. First off, council members, are there any assignments or council work that was done that needs to be reported back? We'll start with council member Green, then we'll go to council member Whitelock.
What did I do last week? I'm trying to, we did have the Association of Municipal Council meeting last week. Although there were some minor technical difficulties, it was actually fairly beneficial. We had a presentation on Harriman City and how they've tied into a 501c3 to help them fundraise for things, for money, like things in parks and those kind of things. And it was that their tie-in is what fascinated me the most, is that how the 501c3 is so tied into the city, that really the 501c3 helps staff almost all of their committees, and it was a really interesting model. Not sure that's one I would want to adopt, but it was a very fascinating model to hear about. I'd rather have the mayor run the committees and get the feedback, but it was really interesting. It was a really interesting model, and it's interesting to hear the perspectives of how other cities do that. The other thing that I'll report back is we did get, I got the first round of emails. If most of you know Jenny Taylor, whose husband was killed in the line of duty, who is now like the civilian representative for the Secretary of the Army here in the state, and runs the Major Brent Taylor Foundation, and very active in the community. I did get the initial emails back from her on the Gold Star Memorial that we talked about last meeting. And she's going to help us get hooked up with the foundation, and provided us the information that we can form the Gold Star Memorial Committee. She has offered to use the Brent Taylor Foundation 501c3 as a mechanism that we can raise public money, or raise private donations to help offset the cost of that memorial, and a couple other things. I forwarded that to Mayor Corbin and Isaac, and I anticipate that we will start working with that committee here shortly to get that moving.
Councilmember Whitelock.
Western Growth met on Monday, and it's slowly been diminishing the attendance, and they've put together some really good presentations, and it's kind of embarrassing when there's very few of us that are there. So we've been wondering what to do, and Don Shelton, a South Jordan City Council member, is the chair. And we've had some sidebars about it, but we discussed it at the meeting, and what the group decided was that we're going to not totally get rid of Western Growth, but we're going to decrease the meetings to basically just around the legislative session, so that we're either going to have 4 or 5 meetings, a pre-meeting yet to be determined, but somewhere between August and November, and then possibly a post meeting in March or April, probably April, and then 3 meetings during the session. So decrease in what they'll be doing. It's just when they started, chambers in this area weren't as strong, and they weren't advocating at the Capitol. We didn't have a group of mayors meeting together from the Southwest Valley. So things have changed, and it looks like it was a good thing that they did, but the usefulness for every month meeting has kind of diminished.
All right, Councilmember Green, you talked about the foundation to help raise funds. We actually had one here in West Jordan from 2004 up through 2019 that I can talk to you a little bit about, share some experiences there. And then I also want to say thank you to the fire department for including us in Fire Ops 101 this last weekend to help give various members of staff and council an opportunity to see some of what happens in the fire service and some of what those needs are, and how we might be able to help support the public safety of our community. So thank you for that. Any other reports from the council? All right, let's move on then to reports from the council office. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. The only thing I have to report is thank you for making selections for how we can prepare for your entry in the parade this coming July. And thanks for those that participated in the fire ops, as was mentioned. And that's really all I have at this time. Thank you.
Okay. We'll move over to the mayor's report. Mayor Burton.
Thanks, Council Chair McConaughey. Last week, we met in COM, which is the mayors across the county, and our main focus of topic is the spring runoff. So we met with the Salt Lake County, I was going to say not flood department, stormwater department, whatever it is, with the ones who are in charge of floods. The good news is we live on the west side of the river. They don't anticipate any problems on the west side of the river, so we are not concerned. They're concerned on the east side of, I would say the river, I'm talking about the Jordan River, by the way. It will be where the problems happen. They're concerned about the creeks and things going down from the mountains feeding into the Jordan River. So they're going to be watching that very closely. And they don't anticipate Bingham Creek being an issue at all. I talked to Kennecott, and Kennecott said they don't anticipate, even though they have runoff coming down, any runoff that comes off the mountain, they will not be sending down Bingham Creek. They will be housing that, keeping that there and using that. So the only runoff we'll get in Bingham Creek will be from rain or snow melt, like it's always been. So we don't anticipate any flooding. However, if, as happened a couple of weeks ago, some areas do get flooded that we don't anticipate. For example, when the golf course, all that snow melted and it rained, there were a couple of homes that got some problems. We were able to get some sandbags from the county real quickly and get them over here. But we don't need to pull them from the county. We did that case because flooding was a result of the county's golf course, not the city's fault. But we do have sandbags at Public Works. Our utilities department has sandbags on hand. We don't know where we'll need them or if we'll need them or when we'll need them, so we keep them on hand. If occasion arises, we can get to them quickly and get them taken care of. So for everybody who's happy that we live on the west side, there's a good reason we do.
So Mayor,
Yes.
Barney's Wash isn't anticipated to have any other issues either?
No, not from snow melt. I'll limit that. Things that we aren't aware of, we can't predict. So we're in good shape, and the county said they're focusing their efforts on this. They'll still maintain those and look at them, but we're in good shape. And an FYI, for earthquake, being on the west side of the river is smart too. Okay, in the Utah League of Cities and Towns, I've been meeting with them in their board meetings. We're gearing up for the semi-annual conference in St. George. Looking forward to seeing you there. It will take me a few days to get there, but I'm looking forward to being there. Sugar Factory Playhouse. They are have Bo Jess going. I will be there Monday night to go see their play. I hope you have your tickets. I hope that if you don't, they haven't sold out on the night you plan to go. It's a very fun play. I think you'll enjoy it. We have the water tank tour coming up. Hopefully you'll be able to come see it, and you'll get to see some things that are unique that you won't get to see after it's finished and after the dirt's put around it. So you can see some interesting things that most people don't know about water tanks. So we will be thankful if you're able to join us on that event. We have an upcoming service project happening, the senior housing right over here. They have Bingham Creek that kind of goes right behind them over there. They are going to be doing a cleanup over there and around their complex and some things on Saturday the 25th. If you would like to stop by and give them a hand and tell them thank you, that'd be great. Maybe they could, you could help them pick some things up that are too heavy for them. Something I emailed you about that I want to follow up on, and anybody else listening that may know Craig Deering, I'm going to be giving him a key to the city. He doesn't know this yet. Everybody else knows but him, and I don't anticipate him listening to this. So you're invited to come and join us as he receives that award. And he's had a great influence on the city for lots of years, and we don't expect that his health has been declining, and he may not be with us a lot longer. So I wanted to make sure we got this to him while he can still appreciate that. And that's my report. Thank you.
Any questions for the mayor? All right, Mr. Lee for city manager's report.
Thank you, Chair. I have 3 department heads I'd like to give you updates. First, Isaac from Public Services about the Vets Park Master Plan. Second, Tawny about the South Valley Regional Airport. And third, Brian Clegg giving you an update about Google Fiber.
Good evening, council members. I had the opportunity to go to the Utah Recreation Parks Association conference last week and got to learn a lot of new things and see a lot of old things that are still working and looking for the next things. I have a short clip that I'd like you guys to see real quick, if you don't mind.
Does it cost money?
No.
Okay, let's watch it.
You can sell tickets.
Fundraise. If we only had a fundraising.
Do we have? It's all right. I think most of you guys have seen Parks and Rec If you haven't, it's my life every day. This video clip talks about the pit in their community, quarter-acre lot, and this clip was them talking about putting about 12 different things on a quarter-acre lot, including a full-size soccer field. It's interesting because every community deals with these types of things. We are fortunate that we actually have a lot of property, but we are limited on the other side, that we don't necessarily have the funds or the ability to implement all of that right now. I'm excited to tell you guys that the Vets Master Plan is finally in process. We're evaluating 3 different vendors currently, and we'll have one assigned next week. This will not detract from the other priorities that you guys have given us recently, but I want to be clear that it's important for us to have a plan, and not just for Vets Park, but every facility and parks overall. What the purpose of me being up here tonight is, I'm trying to create a steering committee to oversee to be a part of this master plan just for Vets Park. I know that every one of you would like to be on that, but for several reasons, we're hoping that we can get 1 or 2 of you that may have some available time that you could commit to being a part of that steering committee. Obviously, it's just the steering committee. It's not the only ones that are giving feedback and input. We will definitely share that with all entities, including the public, as the process goes. But I'm hoping to get 1 or 2 of you to be willing to be part of that steering committee.
When are you planning on meeting?
We don't have the dates yet, but it would be during normal
work
business hours. Yeah.
I could do it.
Okay.
And I'd definitely be interested as well.
I honestly, I kind of expected 7 hands to say I want to be a part of this. So if you guys as a group can talk about who it may work in, and if you guys decide that a couple of you come to a few and then others come to a few of the other meetings, but we're trying to expedite this because we have a lot of other things and a lot of other priorities that have come up in the last year that we really need to get planned out so we can commit to and start moving forward, because we're holding up on a lot of projects.
We need to know,
I've
like,
failed to.
when,
Okay.
because that's, like, for all of us is that's what hinges it.
Okay. All right, so I need to get back on a time that the rest of the steering committee can.
We'll work through Mr. Anderson to coordinate with the council to figure out how that'll work.
All right. Thank you for all of your commitment and help on this and all the other projects that we deal with, and for your direction.
Good evening, Council. It's nice to be here with you. I have 2 updates for you tonight. One is on the soccer complex with the South Valley Regional Airport. I think most of you received the update that I sent out via email a couple weeks ago. If you have any questions for me, please let me know. We have been notified that the Salt Lake City Airport will be holding a master plan meeting on the this is a mouthful for me tonight, South Valley Regional Airport on April 11th at Copper Hills High School. We don't yet have a time, but they let us know that they will be talking about the master plan. As I discussed in the email, they are moving forward with the master plan that will allow for the largest use of the soccer complex that they possibly could allow. So now we're talking price, basically. That's where we're at in the process. We don't anticipate that they will have an answer to that question by this master plan meeting, and they're not anticipating talking about the soccer complex at the master plan meeting. But I did want to make you aware as the 2 things are related. The other thing I wanted to let you know is that we were so busy with the legislative session, I didn't get a chance to let you know that we had moved forward with our federal lobbying contract. And it just so happens that during our legislative session, Congress is very busy with appropriations. So we've been working through some appropriations requests through our congressional delegation over the last couple months. We do have a $4.5 million request that has been prioritized and is moving forward to Congress this year. We still have a lot of work to do, but much farther than we've ever made it before. So we're making significant progress, and I just wanted to provide you with that update.
Has the information on the open house been relayed to the mayor's airport advisory committee as well?
I don't have an answer to that. I don't know who goes to the airport advisory committee, but as a city, we have not received a formal invitation with a time. So I'm not sure that it has.
That's probably my guess as well. I would, knowing the eagerness to engage that some of those folks have, I'm sure they would welcome a heads up or save the date.
Yes, I know I think they got a little preview last night. Maybe Chris.
That's okay. I just want to make sure that they did get the information.
Councilmember
Councilmember
Whitelock,
Whitelock.
did you have a question?
Yeah, what is our ask, what is our $4.5 million ask
It's
for?
the funding gap between what we have. It's the funding gap that we're missing on 1300 West, essentially.
Okay, are we trying to get any money for Big Bend as well?
We are. Our application was denied, so we will not see any money on Big Bend this year.
Okay,
And just to add to that, the reason that our application was denied is that we're not providing matching funds. And so until we choose to provide matching funds, we'll continue to apply, but they've told us we'll be denied for those funds.
and then do you know the format of the airport meeting?
Open house style is what they've said, but I don't have a lot of information. So as soon as we get a formal invitation to that, I'll let you know.
Because if the public's going, they're going to ask about the soccer field. So I hope they're ready
Yes.
for that.
They're aware.
Councilmember Green had a question.
It's not appropriate for tonight's meeting, but if Big Bend was denied because of a lack of matching funds, I think that may be an appropriate discussion coming up in the budget season. That if there's a point for matching funds, maybe we ought to talk about that. So maybe during May, June, when we're getting to budgets and those kind of things, if I can't direct you obviously, but if we can. If you can help us with what the feds expect for matching funds, that might help us.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. When I was on the council with Mayor Johnson, when the city approved going this route, we were under the impression that the city's obligation would be to staff and maintain kind of the urban fishery, and the rest of it would be provided through these various other grants. So the denial is definitely interesting. Definitely something I'd like to talk about.
And we can still apply for other grants. We're looking for those. I know our grants coordinator is actively doing work on that. This is just a specific federal appropriation that comes straight through Congress, so it's a little bit different. And they do look for matching funds on those. So, okay. Great, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Clegg.
Thanks, Council. Just a quick update on Google Fiber. I put the first 3 permits that we, Area 1, Area 2 have been permitted. Area 3, the backbone of part of the system, we're still working through that. But these are the areas they're starting in front of you. The goal here, as we start moving through the neighborhoods now to get the infrastructure put in, will be to have 3 permits in the hole and 3 active permits moving. So as they complete 1 permit, we have another permit ready for them, just to keep the flow of the work going. They'll give us 2 crews right now. As we increase, once we get the process down on how it looks and how it's going to work, they've talked of giving us more crews to get it done quicker. The Google Hut's been installed. They're working on getting all the infrastructure hooked to that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the latest. They'll start working on these areas as soon as the rain stops, so hopefully this week. Any questions?
Brian, if we get anyone inquiring about, maybe, they didn't put my parking strip back very nicely, where do we send those?
I will send contacts out. I got cards. I forgot to bring them tonight for everyone. That
Okay.
Google, they call a number at Google. They talk to a live person.
Okay.
And usually by the time it's reported and by the time they get the email, it's fixed. We'll
Okay.
see.
So
We'll see how fast it is.
issues with their construction goes to them.
Google, yes.
Okay. And if the public wants to be kept appraised of where they're coming next, does Google have a place for that as well?
They do, and also I think we have, you want to speak to that,
Yeah,
Tony?
sure. Council member, we've actually set up a page on our website. I'll send you over a link. It has an interactive map that shows where they're moving to next in the valley in terms of permitting. And it provides all the contact information for the city. And we've also sent that out in our email newsletter. So I think people are starting to pick up on it, but we still get a lot of questions from folks. So I'll send that out to you guys right now.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Pack, did you have a question as well?
No, thank you, Chair. It was already answered. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Clegg.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Clegg. Mr. Lee, any other reports from your group?
That's it. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our victims advocate report with Christy Bates presenting.
Thank you for allowing me to come and kind of give you guys a little idea of what we do in our program. So I'm Christy Bates, a victim advocate coordinator for West Jordan Victim Assistance. We have two victim advocates, Lonnie Stone and Edith Cruz, that work with us. I'll be as quick as I can. Oh, can you go back? Sorry. So just a brief rundown. Victim advocates provide resources and support to victims in our community. On-scene crisis, so we get called out by law enforcement and dispatch to go out on scene to help victims in their place. We safety plan with them. We transport them if they need transportation. We reach out by cases that are routed to us also through the police system, the Versaterm system. We do outreach over the phone, so sometimes we can't reach them in person, so we reach them over the phone. So we're lots of different avenues to reach victims. We send outreach letters to them as well. We notify them of court process, court hearings that are coming up for their people, and we walk them through that entire court process, and we help them obtain protective orders. I wanted to give you guys kind of like a humanized version of what we do. This was a victim that was in our community. Sam is not her real name. That's just a name that I provided her for today. She's had 4 cases here in West Jordan. The first time that I met her was at the hospital. She had varying degrees of physical and mental and emotional harm that had been done upon her. She had broken her wrist in the first incident and had substantial bruising throughout her body, and she had been strangled as well. So I went to the hospital. I met with her. We had SAE nurses come and do a forensic exam. I sat with her the entire time. We safety planned with her to make sure that she had a safe place to go once she left the hospital, and her children. She had children as well. We immediately obtained a protective order for her, and we relocated her family. He went to jail. He got out of jail. He found her, and they had another incident, and this continued to happen. He would get arrested. He'd get out. He'd find her. We'd relocate her. It continued to happen. We were finally able to work with prosecution and get a no bail hold on the last incident that happened with her and her children. And that allowed her to start feeling safe again, even though we had put a safety plan in place for her. It was a really tough situation watching her go through incidents after incidents after incidents. No matter what we did, it was really difficult to keep her safe. She did everything she could as well. We had emergency funds that allowed us to put her in a hotel for a little while, but we ultimately were able to find her a new place to live. At this point, once he was in a no bail hold, we were able to start moving with the court process at that point, working through the West Jordan District Court and communicating with the prosecutors there, explaining to them what was going on with her family and what had happened with all the cases. So having that collaboration with the prosecutors there really helped. He ultimately got a lot of time for these charges. He is currently facing federal charges as well, which is a separate thing. But I remember speaking with her after the last court hearing, and she just cried because here in West Jordan, we have such an amazing team that allowed her to finally feel safe, and having all of this collaboration allowed her to have a voice to stop what was happening to her. So this is just one case that we deal with in West Jordan. We deal with many, many cases every day, and many different aspects. Is that the next slide? Oh, okay. Are you sure? Oh, okay. Sorry, I don't know. So a couple of things that we do, we obviously relocate people. We provide protective orders. We work with all types of assault, aggravated assault, domestic violence, sexual assault. We work with violations of protective orders, custodial interference. We accompany them all the way through the court process. So from beginning till end. We work with their families. We provide U visas as well. So we're working with an underserved population here in West Jordan. Edith Cruz, one of our victim advocates, does speak Spanish. So she helps tremendously with that community as well. Through that process of the courts, we are able to help them gain restitution as well, have a voice with their victim impact statements, and we fight for them to gain their life back in a different way. These are some of the resources that we can provide. The emotional and financial support. So we are there emotionally, and we have financial resources that we can provide them. We help provide resources in the long run as well. We try and find any family support that they can have within the community. We try to find them family and friends that they can go to. We are there sometimes just to hold their hand, to let them know that they have a person that is there for them. There's a lot of different aspects of victims. Some will fight, some will not do anything, and others don't know what to do. And that's kind of the guidance that we give them. And regardless of where they are, we will always help them. If they come back 6 or 7 times, we will continue to help them. So this is just kind of a brief rundown of the growth since, so I've been with the program for about 1.5 years, and this is kind of the growth, a 5-year growth. You can see last year when I took over the program, our numbers have doubled compared to the previous 4 years. And part of that is the collaboration that we have with law enforcement, understanding the grant requirements and working through that. You can see our total number of victims has doubled as well. Victimization, so those are the different types of victim crimes that happen to a person. And then you can see call outs. So call outs is when law enforcement calls us out. Some of those numbers are a little less because of COVID, because we weren't allowed to go out during COVID. But since then, you can see in the last year, it's 103, and this is a calendar year. The last number on the right is the first 2.5 months of this calendar year. So January 1st to a couple of days ago. That you can see those numbers are substantially high, and we anticipate it being what we did in the last year or more, because we're able to facilitate all of these resources for victims. They're really starting to come back and utilize what we have available for them, and being able to get out and let them know what it is we can do for them. So this is total services provided, and you can kind of see it's doubled as well. Being able to have a strong collaboration with prosecution and with law enforcement has allowed us to provide a lot of resources to a lot of people. You can see the numbers are substantially higher than the previous 4 years, and that the number on the right is what we've done just in that first couple of months of this calendar year. So this is kind of some of the reasons I've already kind of gone over a little bit, but the strong relationship that we have with law enforcement having that collaboration with them, letting them know what is our grant required, letting them know what we can do to support them, laying out those requirements, and then understanding the victimizations that we do, all of the things that we are able to help the community with and victims. Educating officers. I just recently did an in-service training with law enforcement, and there was a lot of questions and a lot of understanding of, oh, that's what you guys can do to help us. So that's really helped allow us to provide more resources to victims. We have a strong victim advocate team that we have built here in West Jordan. We have a victim advocate who is now assigned to attend most of the court hearings. And so that has allowed victims to feel more comfortable coming to court and using their voice and understanding the court process, explaining every detail of that. And we also have a strong volunteer and an internship that we have added to our program. The internship program, we've had one intern, and we are currently working on another intern, and that helps tremendously alleviate the volunteer program that we have. We're building. We currently have 3, and we're working on having about 7, which would be ideal. So we've put some information out there in the community, and hopefully we'll be able to get some community volunteers to join our program. I think that's it. Yeah. Okay. Any questions that I can answer for you?
So if someone wanted to volunteer, why don't you give a little bit of information for
Okay.
us?
So volunteers.
What are you looking for? Who would they contact?
So they would contact me, and volunteers we want them within the community. They need to have, work within the community. They go out on call outs, which is nights and weekends, kind of helps alleviate the staff advocates from working all day and being on call all night. And so they go out on nights and weekends, and they only do on-scene stuff. So they are in person with the victims, providing all the resources that we would provide as well. I give them there's a little box that has all the resources in it, and dispatch and law enforcement call them out, and they go out and support them.
Thank you.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you. Do you guys have access to the same mental health benefits that the police department does for the victim advocates group? So you and your 2 cohorts in the victims advocate office. So the police department, we just recently did a funding deal so that the police department has access to
I can answer that one.
stuff.
So the police department has their own, but
Right.
we have one for all employees across the city that's available to them, and they are included in that one.
Okay, I would love to see, and this is just throwing this out there as an idea to think about, is because they're going out with police officers and dealing with some of these same traumatic situations, for them to have the same access to those counseling resources and things, for because that's a hard job. It's taxing, so you deserve to be taken care of as well. So that's just what I'm just kind of thinking, because you are under the police department, you work with the police department, you're not under them, but you work with them. I would think that it stands to reason that you could.
They're actually under the attorney's department,
Right.
but they do work with the police department and the attorneys, yes.
Well, I think the attorneys need a whole different kind of mental health. Never mind.
But I think Zach's got a great point. Councilmember Jacob, sorry, we are in a formal meeting. But maybe if they are rolling out with the police, maybe what we need to look at is designating them as first responders. So if you'll just, Mayor, that may be something that you and the city attorney can take a look at. So we are treating them as first responders because they are out there on the front line.
So the police have one company that does theirs. The fire department's another one, which is also first responders. Then it's another company that does all the rest of the employees, which is actually fairly new in the city. We didn't used to do any of those. We do it for all the employees now.
Any other questions? There do not appear to be any. Thank you, Ms. Bates.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
All right, that brings us to our public hearing tonight regarding landscaping requirements for tree height. And it looks like council members Worthen and Bloom are presenting.
We look so He looks so surprised.
You think I know which button to hit at this point? Okay, I had a constituent that had reached out regarding our tree heights, and we had an ordinance where it was dropped to 13 feet, I believe, and she did a lot of research, actually. Everybody should have gotten the emails back in October regarding her research. There is no other city that has a tree height over the streets that's 15 feet except for us. Our neighboring cities and several others are about 14 feet. So I did do some checking and asking and spoke with our fire department and public works and had some research done on our trucks to make sure that if we did reduce it to 14 feet, it wouldn't interfere. Seeing this was brought to us by a constituent, which was great. I mean, we don't have a lot of those, so I was thrilled to get one. Definitely wanted to look into it and check on it, and it doesn't appear to cause any safety issues to have the tree heights at 14 feet. So I'm asking for you to look at that and reduce it to 14 feet. Councilmember Bloom, do you have anything?
And I think it was also because the drastic change and the health of the trees was a big consideration of why we needed to look and adjust that height, so that way that drastic change, as people cut trees, they're not harming the trees any further, because we do want to protect the trees in our city as well as protect our city from being hurt by the trees and vice versa.
All right. Are there any questions for those who are bringing this before we go to the public hearing? We'll start with Councilmember Green.
And Council Office Director Anderson, maybe you can give me a better answer on this one. Inside the packet, there's attachment 1 and attachment 2. They're both labeled Planning Commission recommendations. What the heck is the difference, and why do we have 2?
Bear with me just a moment. Attachment 1 is the Planning Commission recommendation. Attachment 2, can you open that? Is, I believe, the text amendment.
But they both say Planning Commission recommendation across the top. And they've got 2 different wording, and so I'm wondering what's the difference between the 2?
That's my fault. I didn't change the top of the second document.
Okay, what's the top of the second document?
The one that says Planning Commission recommendation. So the titles in Attachment 1, Tree Canopy Height Code Text Amendment Planning Commission, is the one from the Planning Commission. Attachment 2 includes the 14 feet. I didn't change the header. That's on me.
Oh, okay, so one is Planning Commission recommendation and the other
Yes.
one is
14 feet.
14 feet. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Mr. Anderson.
I was just going to add, it was presented to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission gave a positive recommendation at 15 feet.
All right. If there are no other questions, then we can move to the public hearing. If you'd like to speak to this item and you're online, please hit the button that shows raise hand. If you're here in person, we'll start with folks who are here and invite you to come to the dais to speak to this item. You'll have up to 3 minutes. Is there anybody who would like to address the council on this item? All right, and I'm looking online. There do not appear to be any folks online, and in person, nobody? All right. I will close the public hearing and return to the council for discussion and perhaps a motion. Councilmember Green.
Seems to me when we had this discussion, and I'm going to tell you that I don't like either attachment right now. And the reason why, attachment 1 from the Planning Commission, first off, 15 feet's not going to cut it. The residents don't like 15 feet. We're going to respond to, I think we should respond to the residents. We should respond to making sure that trees are reasonable. We haven't had any, we haven't, almost all the damage to trucks were done at the 10-foot level. So, the difference between 14 feet and 15 feet, is more about what the citizens are responsible for than what, the damage they cause to the vehicle. When we had these discussions before, I thought we were talking about picking a specific spot on the street and measuring it. When we say 14 feet at all possible perpendiculars between the street surface and the tree, now we're talking about a moving target. You gotta have 14 feet at the where it meets the curb. You gotta technically. Technically it's where the curb starts, and then as the street domes up, arcs up, it's got to be. We've got to have a consistent standard. We've got to have a consistent standard that somebody can figure out that if they went and got a stick, or they went down to Home Depot and bought a 14-foot, actually they'd have to buy a 20-foot and then cut it. But they could measure out a 14-foot stick and hold it up and not have to go every spot along the street where that branch overhangs. It needs to be 14 feet and straight out. It needs to be 14 feet with a 0 degree angle from the point where it's measured from the curb. So I don't want to, somehow we either need to work, and I don't like working on the language from the dais. So I would just as soon see this postponed, so we can get the language right. The other one, and I'm hung up on definitions when it says trees adjacent to pedestrian walkways. If the tree has a canopy over the sidewalk, doesn't matter whether it's adjacent to the pedestrian walkway or not, the canopy goes over the sidewalk. So who determines what adjacent is? If the canopy goes over the sidewalk, the canopy goes over the sidewalk, and it's got to be 8 feet high. That one I don't think is too difficult. That the one that I do have a difficulty with is on the trees, where it says that it has to have a minimum canopy clearance of 8 feet above at all possible perpendiculars. I don't know about some of your all neighborhood, but my neighborhood, the sidewalks aren't level. And now all of a sudden, the sidewalk buckles and the sidewalk goes up 6 inches, 8 inches. Now we're measuring from, and we've got a moving target because that branch could be 8 feet one spot, but it'll only be 6, 7.5 one spot, and 8 feet in another. And I want to make it Look, I want to make it easy for our residents, but I also want to make it easy for code enforcement. Code enforcement shouldn't have to guess at where to put the stick to say that the canopy's 8 feet or the canopy's 14 feet. And so I think this needs some more work, but and that's where I'd like to see it go. But those are my comments.
Councilmember Worthen, then Councilmember Bloom.
Well, the 14 feet was determined based on some research done by.
It's not the 14 feet that I'm worried about.
Okay, but
it's how we measure the 14
Well, let me
feet.
finish to back where the 14 feet came from. It was conversations with making sure that trucks wouldn't damage trees or get damaged by trees. So that's where that was coming from. But I would like, if everybody's fine with it, have Brock address how they measure that, because that is his expertise, is it not? Would that be fine?
Let's wait till council have all had a chance to chime in, because there are a couple other lights, and then,
Okay,
then we
thank
can come back. Councilmember Bloom.
For that language, in the notes, Mr. Wall suggested the following
Can you
language.
guys give line numbers when you're saying?
This is in the packet where it went for the meeting back in December. And it's just in our meeting notes. And Mr. Walls suggested the following language: the measurement applies to any part of the pavement to which the tree hangs. Seeing no objection from the council, Chair Whitelock requested this addition to the suggested language. So that seems to me where it was pretty clear on what we wanted the language to be, and that our intent is 14 feet above any portion of the parking lane or travel lanes.
Yeah, I don't remember that, but okay.
Councilmember Jacob.
Yeah, I don't think it's hard to hit this moving target. Anywhere in the street, you carry a 14-foot pole, and if you carry it around anywhere in the street and it hits the tree anywhere in the street, as long as it's, you know, perpendicular, as long as it's vertical, it hits the tree, you got to cut that part of the tree. I don't see why that's hard. Just parallel to this, I don't know. I don't see why that's hard. I'm good with it, because a truck or a whatever is going to drive anywhere particular in the street, and if it's a 13-foot 11-inch truck and you got to clear 14 feet, then it should be able to go drive anywhere. So anywhere that it goes, I don't know. I don't see why that's hard. So maybe I'm missing something, but to me it looks pretty straightforward. I don't know. Again, Brock maybe can address why it's hard, if it's hard.
All right. So during the Planning Commission's conversation, they did address some of the language and suggested a modification with after conversation with Mr. Murray. If you look at the Planning Commission version, I think it's the one that's actually labeled Planning Commission version in there that has it at 15 feet on line 31. It changes that from like at all points perpendicular to gravitationally vertical. It's a change.
What the heck does that mean?
So, yeah, I think that could still be simplified a little bit, but I'm listening to the Planning Commission. There was no support for the change. Their recommendation was to remain with the 15 feet. If we go back to the conversation we had the city's urban forester arborist here as well, also recommending that we stay with 15 feet. One of the things that's really got me wanting to stay with the 15 feet that we have is Utah Department of Transportation. The legal height for a commercial vehicle is 14 feet, which is why I like the 15, because it gives just a little bit of clearance. But if commercial vehicles are allowed up to 14 feet, I wouldn't want to go below that 15. So those are my thoughts. If I see a light from Councilmember Whitelock, and then we can ask Mr. Hudson to come talk.
I believe that part of our job is to listen to residents, whether it's 1, 10, or 100. I think a resident's voice should matter to this body. I think that's what our purpose is in a republic, is to represent those that come and speak to us. So as far as where we measure, I want it to be fair. I don't know what really is fair, because there are some good points if the sidewalk's up, but I would hope that our staff would not say, aha, here it's only 7 feet. And I would think that's what they would do, is measure from the normal sidewalk, not from the elevated. So, but for me, the 14 feet is the whole purpose this was brought back to us. And if the UDOT says 14 feet is the highest the truck can be, well, then our trees are 14 feet and above, then we should still be okay, I think. So, and I don't think there's a whole lot of commercial vehicles where our residents are having issues with harming their health of their trees. Councilmember Bloom is absolutely right. If you cut off too much at one time, you lose the tree. Ask my husband. He trimmed our cherry tree and it no longer lives.
All right. Were there specific questions from Mr. Hudson that we want to address?
I just wanted him to address how he's measuring it. Gravitational wise, apparently.
I think that's how, with a gravitational.
Mr. Hudson.
Thank you, Council. To address Councilman Jacobs to begin with, it's not difficult. The officers will look at the tree. Normally we measure from the edge of the asphalt. Every one of my officers, plus we have a couple extras, have aluminum poles that go up to 16 feet high. We're able to measure the 15 and anything above or below without an issue. We'll start at the edge of the roadway and measure the 15 from there. We have had instances where the tree branch or the tree itself, the branch is at 15, but the end of it's at 12 because they do grow so long and go down over the roadway. There being the reason it needs to be whatever height you choose all the way across the roadway because the roads do crest. When you've got cars parked on the side of the road, your gentleman pulling a fifth wheel or your lady pulling a fifth wheel, they don't drive down the edge of the road where the park lane is because there's cars. They go right down the middle. So as for the sidewalks, we measure from several different locations. If it's 8 feet and if we have a 7'10" because of the sidewalk, we're not sending a notice to that. We have other things to do and it's just not meaningful to do so. Any more questions?
Any other questions? All right. Thanks, Brock. One last question I had that came up last time. This is probably for Mr. Clegg. I thought it was mentioned in the last conversation about this, the height of the vehicle that actually does the asphalt overlay. Do you recall off the top of your head what the size of that particular vehicle was?
It's actually the hydrovac truck that's our highest truck.
Okay.
And it was 12 feet something, 12 feet 2 inches or something at the highest point. What we have to think about here too is the sweepers, because they go in the gutter pan and they get right next to the gutter, and the garbage trucks get right next to the gutter, and they're lifting the cans too. So if there's a tree that's not at the appropriate height, they end up damaging the tree. So I think our highest truck in Public Works is 12 foot 2 inches or something like that.
And that includes that big yellow machine that does the asphalt overlays?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
And at Planning Commission, Mr. Quinney probably knows better. Who was there? There was Fire Marshal, I think, who came and said there was a truck, but it was still 13 something. It wasn't 14 or above. I don't remember the specifics. I just remember I think it was the Fire Marshal and it was 13 something.
All right. So I'm looking for a motion. Councilmember Bloom.
Yeah, if no one, I'll go ahead and do that. I'll move to approve ordinance number 23-09, amending title 13-13-10G, landscaping requirements, and 13-18-10E2, urban forestry, changing the clearance of the tree canopy height from 15 feet to 14 feet. And I'll second.
Oh, you need to say the rest.
Oh, and make any other clarifying changes.
And then I'll second again.
So what clarifying changes are you looking for?
Did we have any clarifying changes?
Because in what the changes are, there are like where it's being measured and stuff, right?
Gravitational, vertical.
So
Just where you measure from, there's change in language.
Well, I think what we need to I'm going to jump in here. We need to, I think that the motion probably ought to use the wording of attachment 2 because
attachment 2, yeah.
because that has the wording that it seems like everybody was more likely to agree with than the gravitational whatever, and attachment 1 also had the 15 feet. Mm-hmm. So I think I would ask for a clarification to make sure that we're using the language in attachment 2.
So make from canopy 15 to 14 feet using attachment.
For simplicity, do you want to submit a new motion?
Yeah, I'll withdraw my motion. I'll withdraw my second. Okay, let me see if I can word this right.
We're operating with modified Roberts rules.
All right, I move to approve ordinances 2309 and Title 13-1310
and landscape requirements are 13, 18, 10. Urban forestry, changing the clearance canopy height from 15 to 14 feet as mentioned in attachment 2. What was the title of that, Cassidy? I don't want the title. Attachment 2. Okay. Cindy, does that make sense?
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Bloom, second by Councilmember Worthen. Any discussion to the motion? All right, seeing none, let's vote. Oh, sorry, I can't.
That's okay. I would just push the button and hope that you look at the little screen. I'm just gonna be a no, just because I think we're tinkering with what doesn't need to be tinkered with. I'm fine leaving well enough alone.
Councilmember Pack.
Thank you, Chair. Echoing Councilmember Whitelock's comment on advocating for people who reach out. I've only been contacted on this issue by people who are in favor of the change. I haven't received any emails or text to the contrary, and as was mentioned, I always like to advocate for what the majority of people who contact me want. So in my own judgment, I can see pros and cons both ways. So also noting that the people that have reached out to me want the change, I'll be voting in that direction. Thank you.
And then I'll note that I'll be in opposition for reasons previously stated. While those who are advocating the change were those who brought it, I don't know that there's a broader knowledge of this request among the public. And I do know that the members of the Planning Commission, well, all of them were in opposition, and we represent them as well as others in the city. So I would hope there wouldn't be a characterization that the no vote doesn't represent the will of the residents, because I think it does. With that, I'm not seeing any other lights, so we'll turn to Ms. Quick for a vote.
Councilmember Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Worthen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bloom,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob,
No.
Councilmember Whitelock,
Yes.
Chair McConaughey,
No.
and Councilmember Pack.
Yes.
Thank you. I show that. Oh, you said yes? Councilmember Pack, you said yes? Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. That motion passes 5-2.
All right. Well, that will bring us to our first business item this evening, which is an interlocal agreement with Salt Lake County for administration of the elections that are coming up this year. We get to hear from Ms. Sloan on this one.
Thank you, Chair McConaughey. It's nice to see all of you. And I just want to say, starting off, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just the messenger. I'm bringing to you an interlocal agreement with Salt Lake County Clerk's Office to administer the 2023 municipal election. If you looked at the attachment, which I'm sure you all did, you saw that the contract shows for a traditional election with a primary and a general election of $220,995. Now I have to say that when we got the original contract, they handed it out to us, the clerks we all met, and they handed it out to us. And the original contract that I received was $253,229. And I went into sticker shock myself. So I immediately reached out to Denise while I'm sitting there, and I knew it was wrong. It was a number that I just knew was wrong. So I asked them to reevaluate the contract, and they did, and it came back at $220,995. Now, I want to just give a little bit of an explanation. That number is based on 5 races, so the 4 districts and the mayoral race. If you reflect back to the 2019, there were 6 because we had a special election because we were changing the form of government, and we had an at-large in there when we did this last election. Same election, but we had an at-large when Councilmember Green ran. So there's a little bit of a difference there in price. We have 5 elections that we're going, 5 different ballots. So there's a little bit of a difference there. So I'm coming to you tonight to ask you to approve Resolution 2315, and I'm here if you have any questions.
So I've got 2 questions, and then we'll see who else has anything else they want to chime in. How much exactly did you save us by going back again?
I'm sorry, say
How
that
much
again.
money were you able to save the city by going back on that one?
Well, it's about $30,000.
Nice, thank you.
You're welcome.
About 30,000 times. And did you want to talk a little bit about location of Dropbox?
Yes, and I want to say one other thing, if I may.
Please.
Also on the original agreement that I attached, the county had put in that we had 16,390 active voters, which I knew was completely wrong. So it went back again a second time, and I had them reevaluate it again. And it's our current active voters is 53,543. Now, I'm sure you guys probably know, but I'm just going to reiterate. An active voter is a person who has voted in the last 4 years or has been in touch with the Salt Lake County Clerk's office to update their physical address. That's who's considered an active voter. And ballot box, I have a slide. I have been working on getting a new ballot box because the city of West Jordan, we have one, and it's at City Hall. And if we all go back and think about Chair McConaughey's drone flying over the park and our line, way large line, I told the mayor, I said, Mayor, can I get another ballot box? Because I don't want this to happen again. And he said yes. So this is where we are putting an additional ballot box. It's out at Ronwood Park at 5985 West, 8600 South. It sits just across from the park's yard, and it's going to be right there in that center parking structure there. And we've made it. I worked with Brian and Isaac and our traffic engineer to make sure that we were good to put this box here. We're going to make it an enter only on the north end, and I'll get some signs out there so when it's actually election time, we'll sweep all the way to the west side of the parking lot, down south, and then out the exit. So we figured this is a good place. It's well lit. It's really way out west, but I really wanted to make it more convenient for our citizens out west to have a place to drive to drop their ballot that wasn't just at City Hall. I'm actually working on a 3rd box. I'm not sure that I'm trying to get it done before the election, but finding this spot was a chore. It was a challenge. So I'm trying to find another place that's well lit where we can put it that won't obstruct traffic, because you all know when that ballot box at City Hall, when we have an election, it can be challenging.
Councilmember Pack.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for all of your work and effort and planning and for saving money.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Curious with the proposed new location or locations for the ballot boxes, what protective measures will be in place to safeguard the integrity of the box
That is a great
itself? Because
question.
here at City Hall, there's more police presence and it's more centrally located.
That is a great question. Thank you for asking that. So I had a concern too, putting it out west, at the park. There is a lot of traffic during the day. However, they now install cameras on top of the ballot box on a pole. It's powered by solar power. It's in a well-lit area. That area is all well-lit. I reassured with Brian and with Isaac that it's well-lit, and it is. I went out and I did my homework. Really, during an election, that camera is always going. Right now, there's no camera on it. In fact, the one at City Hall, the wind during our last storm blew the solar panel off the top of it, and it's now sitting in my office. But
that blew a long way.
It blew all the way to the.
Is that other duties is assigned as the city election officer is take
Yes.
care of the solar panel?
You know me, I go above and beyond. So, as far as security, I mean, I can ask for the police department to do to do extra patrols past it during election. But I feel like it's in a pretty good area, and that area, as you know, is growing. And I took that into consideration that on the north side of the parks building, there's some, development going on there. Eventually, there's been talk about a rec center going in there. So I feel like it's in a really good area, and it is very well placed for the people on the west side of the city to go to it to drop off a ballot.
Councilmember Worthen.
Welcome.
Does the ballot box have to be on city property?
They like it to be, yes.
But it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be. They like it to be.
Can it be on county?
It can. And I think I know where you're headed with this.
Well, she's right behind you.
I know. And when she was up
You
here,
is that eyes in the back of your head?
when she was up here, you can ask Denise. I said to Denise, I need to talk to her before I leave to see if I can put a ballot box at the library. So yes, yes.
I mean, that would obviously be well lit, and there's right on a corner and a lot more traffic.
And
so
the county likes them to be with as many miles as you can away. They don't like them all bunched close together. I asked for specific mileage, like, is there a specific mileage? They said, no, we just don't like them all in one area. They like them spread. So it's a perfect place. So yes, I think that's a great idea.
Councilmember Jacob.
Oh, I will talk to you as soon as I'm done.
Thanks. I have two questions. One, with this location, I worry a little bit about the food truck events that we would want to have them maybe somewhere else, because there's a lot of foot traffic right there. And I would think there'd be people leaning up against them and people kind of always hanging out kind of right there, looking for a place to sit and eat their, churros or whatever they picked up at the food truck, or their chili dogs, or I can't remember even what I get at the food trucks when I go there. They're different meals. They're going to be looking for places to sit, and there's no places to sit there. So you sit at every spot you can, and they're going to be gathering around that. I just think that's an easy cover for somebody who wants to do something nefarious, where the cameras are right there, but there's all these people around it, so you might not see somebody lean up against it and slide a handful of ballots in or whatever. And just the kind of thing that they're going to watch for. Not that I think we have a whole lot to worry about, but I would probably want to move the food truck event if we're going to have during the election cycle. And I know it's over for November, but for the primary, it would be a thing.
Right. Corbin brought this same concern up, and I talked to Isaac about it. And Isaac assured me that the food trucks wouldn't be there. We can make other arrangements for that. So it was a concern that we've talked about, and I think we've got a handle on how to change that.
Yeah, I think we would just need to move them to somewhere else in the parking lot, or it's not the food truck being parked there. It's just the crowd of people that event attracts, and it gets really busy over there. It gets packed.
Yeah.
So it's the crowds around it. Like here in the parking lot, there's no reason for 20 people to go stand around the ballot box, right? And if you saw 20 people standing around the ballot box on the camera, your red flag would go up, and you'd go out and you'd verify ballots, and the county would go do their thing. But there, at that location, it's going to be normal on Tuesday nights or Thursday nights or whatever night it is, for people to go stand around that ballot box, and you have 20, 30 people there, and you're not going to, it's just something to be aware of that I was just thinking about.
I think it's also awesome that they're going to see that there's a ballot box there
Well,
and utilize it.
The publicity is great. Don't get me wrong. And then the second thing that would alleviate that concern is that we haven't talked about, and I don't know if there's will on the council to talk about, but the elephant in the room is there's a possibility to avoid a primary election altogether and do it all at once with ranked choice voting. And we've talked about it before. We've liked the idea in the past. We've not liked the idea in the past. Some of us have gone back and forth on it. I don't like it for at-large elections when there's multiple winners, because it gets confusing, but we don't have that this year. We just have every race as an individual race. So we haven't talked about it. And if we're going to talk about elections, I think that would be something that we would want to at least ask the question. Y'all can shake your heads and say no, and that's fine, but somebody ought to at least ask the question.
So we'll come to Councilmember Worthen here in a second. Since Councilmember Jacob did bring that up, that's something Mr. Anderson had also talked about as well. If we were to change course and go with a ranked choice voting for this election, that would impact the price for support, and that would impact the contract. So what Mr. Anderson had asked, well, do you want to go ahead and ask?
Yeah, so the state law, as I understand it, would require the city council to take action if you wanted to participate through a formal resolution, if you wanted to participate in ranked choice voting. If you don't do anything, then you're not signed up for ranked choice voting. So if previously when this was discussed, and you have to do this every year till I think 2026 is what's in the code.
Correct.
So you have until April 28th to decide what that is. So previously, this council has not elected to do ranked choice voting. So tonight, if the majority of you desire, and I'm just straw poll, if you want to bring something back on April 12th, then you can discuss ranked choice voting, and we can Tangi can modify the contract to accommodate ranked choice voting. You have to take action to go in. You don't have to do anything to stay out.
So the contract wouldn't need to be modified if we approve the contract, but because it's all listed there, what the price would be. But yeah, I
Yes.
agree that if we're going to talk about ranked choice voting, we would need to bring it back because I'm not prepared to talk about ranked choice voting tonight. I'm just prepared to talk about the interlocal agreement, but I'm happy to put something together and come back if that's what you would like.
So just some clarification, would going with ranked choice voting impact the cost and the approval of the contract that we have up for discussion tonight?
The cost is going to be less with ranked choice voting with just a general election. If we wanted to add a primary, that would be the same cost. But we need to keep in mind, and I'll just briefly talk about this. There are no more funds available with the Lieutenant Governor's office to help educate the public. So we would have to come up with our own funds to educate the public. And what that cost would be, I don't know. Like I said, I'd have to bring the information all back to you.
Thank you. Well, tonight, since we're looking at the contract, we'll keep that in mind.
So I just wanted to go back to the boxes. So are you looking at doing a box out by Roundwood and at the library, or because my thought was just put it at the library and not do the one in Roundwood?
I would like three. I would like there to be three ballot boxes. With the city our size, I think we very well could utilize all three. So there are places spread throughout the valley through our city for it to be more convenient. It doesn't cost us anything other than a slab of cement that I actually am using from Public Works Street Department will have some left over, and that's what I'm having
leftover
them.
slabs of cement.
Slab of cement. They're going to put it down. They're going to do a job, and they think they'll have enough left over to do it. That's how I'm.
There you go.
So,
another suggestion I would just have is Public Works itself.
we thought about that. I went out there with Brian. Brian and I drove around, tried to find a place to put it. Putting it there would impact the flow of traffic no matter where we put it.
Yeah, I think Brian's office would be good though.
Yeah.
I just thought.
Councilmember Green.
I just want to point out, we're here to talk about the interlocal agreement, not the placing of election boxes or ranked choice voting or anything like that. And I think we're straying too far from a field. So with that, I'm going to make a motion. I'm going to make the motion that we approve resolution number 23-015, approving the interlocal agreement. And I'm going to add a couple of words, ensuring that the city recorder's name is filled in on the blank that's not in on the document that we have.
I was doing so well. You point that out.
I'll second it.
Motion by Councilmember Green, second by Councilmember Whitelock. Any discussion to the motion? Councilmember Pack.
Thank you, Chair. Just curious if we need any more information on line 74, because on line 33, it says the City Council approves the interlocal agreement attached here to as Exhibit A, but then there isn't an Exhibit A. So it could be confusing. I mean, I think we know what we're talking about, but Then when you go down to Exhibit A, it just says to Resolution 23-015.
So, as I'm looking at the attachments, there's the resolution, and Exhibit A looks like, oh, it seems like it's calling out Exhibit A and saying that this is the exhibit that attaches to the resolution.
That's what I'm assuming too.
Seems like, yeah. Yeah.
Well, there's nothing, it just says,
There's an exhibit there.
It stops though at Exhibit A.
Oh, does
Line
it?
78, and then there's nothing below line 78.
Well, I read the exhibit. What did I miss?
we must be looking at it in different locations.
It's the one that's on the resolution itself, and then there's the other attachment that's called Interlocal Agreement V2. That's the scanned document that doesn't have the line numbers.
Okay, looks like I'm looking at the middle one that says V2 final. So since it says the final,
Yeah, the B2 was when I got the corrected price and the active voters all squared away. I had to update it twice.
well, if the price is right, come on down.
So what's needed to answer the question then, Councilmember Pack?
Oh, thank you, Chair. It's so I'm looking at Council Member Bloom's copy, and it's attaching, but
It doesn't show up on mine either, but I'm just on the public. I'm not logged in, so maybe that might have something to do with it.
all I was mentioning is if you click on the interactive agenda on Resolution 23-015, West Jordan, Salt Lake County, and a local resolution version 2 final, on line 33, there's a reference to Exhibit A, but then you go down to Exhibit A on line 77, and it doesn't have anything. So,
But the document is part of the packet, 13 pages. And the resolution the resolution authorizes the mayor to sign the document, right?
Actually, it's where it's a council approved document, so the council chair would end up signing this document. So it's because it's an interlocal agreement and it involves money. So, but my opinion is, since the resolution in section 1 says that the city council approves the interlocal agreement attached here too as Exhibit A, it's clear what Exhibit A is, right? It's the interlocal agreement, and the interlocal agreement is a separate item in the packet in PrimeGov, so.
Chair, if I may provide some clarity, page 1 and 2 of the middle document is the resolution. It does reference Exhibit A as the interlocal agreement. The last document, Salt Lake County Interlocal Agreement V2, is the resolution that is signed to form by Salt Lake County Attorney.
Councilmember Green. Oh, never mind. I just think the confusion might be where we have the resolution that has a section on here that says Exhibit A, but then there's nothing there. And like, had that just been dropped, I think we would have saved ourselves about 7 minutes of conversation. That said, are there any other questions, lights? Okay, your hand is right smack in front of that light, which.
Was that helpful?
Go for it. Thank you, Councilmember Jacob.
So in the interlocal agreement, in section 3, in section or subsection D, ranked choice voting is mentioned and is germane to the conversation because the county has the ability to conduct ranked choice voting for races involving no more than 10 candidates. The city therefore acknowledges that if the county conducts a ranked choice voting race involving more than 10 candidates, the county will be able to count only the first 10 valid preference rankings cast by each voter in that race. The city then assumes full risk and liability for it and agrees to indemnify and hold harmless the county. Yada, yada, yada. For any lawsuits, et cetera, including attorney's fees rising out of the city's decision to use ranked choice voting if there's more than 10 candidates. So, the question is, what if more than 10 candidates file and we choose in April whether or not to do ranked choice voting? Candidates don't file until
This has
August.
nothing to do with the motion.
August, right? No, June is if we're doing a traditional. Ranked choice voting
Is August.
So
is
point-
August.
just a point of order, because we do have a motion and a second. Is this
Yeah.
question or
This is
dialogue
this
to
is
the
discussion
motion?
to the motion for sure. I'm bringing up the point, and theoretically we have the. Yeah, never mind. Yes, it's germane to the motion. If we approve the motion, and thus the agreement, and then we choose in April to go to ranked choice voting, and then in August, 11 candidates file for, say, mayor. The county says, oh, well, we'll just count the first 10. And then people will sue. The city says, we're now on the hook for this lawsuit because the county, we've held them harmless because of this clause. That's a realistic scenario. Not that necessarily that we get 11 candidates for mayor, although that's not unheard of. 2013, you'll recall. But also in past elections where ranked choice voting has been done, anti-ranked choice voting activists, if you will, have packed the candidate, have gone down and filed just to throw wrenches into the monkey wrenches into, I said that totally wrong. You know what I meant to say. To throw a kink into the systems and just to show how problematic ranked choice voting is or whatever, just by the fact of having too many candidates. So in my opinion, subject to answering these questions, I'm not ready to vote for this. Because if we don't say that, oh, well, ranked choice voting isn't part of this discussion, well, it's part of the contract, and it's a great big red flag in my mind. I could see it becoming a problem. So I'll be a no in the interlocal agreement until we have these other discussions. Thanks.
And I will speak in favor of the motion because it lets us start running down the path we've already started, but it appears to give us some flexibility should we find a need for it a little bit further down. I'm not seeing any other lights, so I'll look to Ms. Quick for a vote.
Okay, let's start with Councilmember Whitelock,
Yes.
Chair McConaughey,
Aye.
Councilmember Worden,
Yes.
Councilmember Pack,
No.
Councilmember Jacob,
No.
Vice Chair Bloom,
No.
Councilmember Green.
Yes.
I show the motion passes 4-3.
All right.
Chair McConaughey, if I can say one more thing, I just wanted to let you all know that I am putting together a tour of the election center. I've asked for that tour. They will be doing it the first part of July, so I'll be sure to reach out to all of you and let you know when that's ready.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I had asked her about that earlier when we were planning the agenda, if that'd be possible, and she was already on top of it. So thanks, Angie. Okay, that brings us to our next item, which is business, general business regulations and licensing requirements. Alan, do we have anything for this one? Okay, Mr. Hudson.
Thank you, Chair McConaughey and Council. We've looked at this at a couple work sessions, workshops before. This is Title 4, Chapter 1 to the Business License Regulation Code. Before you is an ordinance 23-12 that staff is looking for approval to change the business license code to what you have in front of you. And I'm here for any questions you may have.
Start with Councilmember Green.
I think this is a great start, but we didn't go far enough. Let me just ask you a couple of questions in specific. In the draft code, it specifically requires the applicant to be an adult.
Mhm.
There is no requirement in state law that an applicant can be an adult, that requires it to be an adult. And in fact, when I was looking at the alcohol laws in 32B over the weekend, 32B was actually clarified this year to clarify that minors can have interests in an alcohol-related business. Well, if a minor can have an interest in an alcohol-related interest, or in an alcohol-related business, then I'm going to assume that the legislature also means that a minor can have an interest in any other business. And in fact, the state law prohibits us from having a license for minors for occasional businesses, right? There's a law for that. Well, we know that the legislature wrote that because one of our sister cities got aggressive on lemonade stands. But if the assumption is that minors are exempt from licenses for occasional businesses, then minors probably can be licensed for regular businesses. And so I'm concerned about that particular piece that requires our applicants, and it requires, that same section requires all members of the LLCs to be applicants and 51% shareholders. And what we really looking for in my mind, and maybe I'm wrong, and I don't know if I've got 4 votes, but what I'm looking for is a point of contact for the business in the city. And so I'm wondering if that section is overly restrictive. I'm concerned about what the definition of completed application in the definition also says that it requires a BCI check. Well, if we have, at least the way I read it, I'll have to go back and look. And I know I've harped on this before, but I know that when the fire department went out to the business that I used to own, the name of the sign had the DBA and the legal business name was something else. And this ordinance requires us to do legal name and DBA. But what's going to happen when there's a legal name and a DBA and the fire department goes out and then everybody says, well, but that doesn't match the city records and now you've got to change the name of your business license, that I ended up spending a couple hours on, to fix. So I'm concerned about that one. And I'm also concerned on a couple other sections, like does the city care if the hours are posted on the business? There's a section that requires the business license hours to be posted on the business. And if they don't, then they're violating the business license ordinance and we can revoke their business license. And that to me doesn't make sense. And so my thought is, and I know that there are 2 new business license coordinators, if I'm not mistaken. I see Scott and Duncan's head nodding north and south. What I'm wondering is with 2 new sets of eyes, should we delay this and let the new people look at that as well and see if there are some things that they scratch their head and go, why are we doing this? And just look at this some more. So but by the way, I love the fact that half the definitions got chopped up and got referred to state code, so we're not redefining things. And I looked at this and it's like, yeah, we cut that and we cut that and we cut that, and I'm all in favor of that. I just like to see maybe it's those 3 or 4 things just don't seem to match. You know what I mean? Minors and business hours and a couple of things. I'd just like to see it maybe, and maybe the new people have an idea of some. Anytime a new person walks into an area, they always say, "Why are we doing that?" And I'd like to give them a chance to say, "Why are we doing that?" and see if they can't come up with some ways that make it friendly too.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you. I didn't even have to raise my hand. I had a quick question just on under the definition of business. We added the words or personal benefit. So people do X, Y, and Z for economic gain or economic benefit or personal benefit. Is that defined anywhere? What qualifies as a personal benefit that is not an economic benefit to somebody?
I think what this started with was a landlord that owns 2 or 3 homes that he's renting to his tenants, but they're employees. So he says he gets no benefit from it other than the upkeep, the maintenance, the labor on the property. That's the services benefit he is obtaining from them living there while he claims not paying much
And he
rent.
claims that's not an economic benefit, and we couldn't argue that that actually is an economic benefit because now he doesn't have to pay somebody to go.
We
do
could,
that
but this
work, yada, yada.
clarifies kind of a little bit easier, makes it a little bit more easier to understand.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it clarifies because now personal benefit could be, I mean, for that particular case, maybe it does, but could be all sorts of different things that may not be necessarily a business, but I can say, oh, I get a benefit from that. So now there's a lot of things I do where I get a personal benefit from that I don't have a business license for. I mean, lots of things. I go shopping for a car. I get a personal benefit, but you know, I don't have to have a business license to go do that, for example. So just kind of just a weird thing that I didn't know if personal benefit was actually defined anywhere. I think that would be helpful if we're going to put it in there that we have a definition for it.
Councilmember Whitelock.
As we've requested, I did send in some questions, but I didn't hear back, so I may ask them now.
Please.
I would not be opposed to having this be looked at by someone else either. I think we could do better. I thought our purpose for wanting this was to make it easier. Line 1260 to 1262 talks about curfews. Do we have any curfews in this city, in this county, in this? I know in the state we probably still do because Salina had one.
There is a state law that does govern curfews.
Okay. And do we do anything with that in the city?
That would be a police department issue. I do not know if they enforce curfews. I know code enforcement doesn't.
Okay.
So that I couldn't say.
Okay.
I can personally tell you they do.
Pardon me?
Not for me, but I can personally tell you they do, yes.
Okay.
1272 to 75, I need someone to help me understand why we care if a business closes for more than 10 days. If I have a mom and pop restaurant and I'm from Thailand and I want to go there for a month, I don't see what the harm of them closing their business for more than 10 days is. If it's my business, what business is it of the city's that I close it? So unless someone can explain that to me and with the reason that makes sense to me,
If it's the Thai restaurant behind my house, I would very much be opposed to them closing for 10 days.
that'll be a problem.
I've eaten there a couple
Yeah,
of times.
I
They're
can
not
see
bad.
certainly as a customer or a client of a business, but as the city, I don't understand why we care. And then I'm just a little bit uneasy on line 1344. It talks about if they've had a class B misdemeanor that we're going to tell them no. And then I looked that up.
Could be anything, couldn't it?
Well, it seems like it could be a lot of things, but what came to mind for me was sometimes when you have people going through a divorce, accusations are made that may or may not be accurate and charges are filed. And I don't know what it would matter to me if there was an assault charge on my auto mechanic. So I see Mr. Dodd, so maybe you can help me understand why it matters.
And I agree with you. I don't think it would, and I think the language in the code takes that into account. It has to be a Class B misdemeanor that would be related to the type of business they're doing. For example, the reason why this is in there is because we've had situations before where people have been charged with, prostitution charges in another jurisdiction at massage parlors, and they are coming to work and have a massage parlor here. And if we don't have something in our code, we know, but there might be an issue there that is directly related to that business. That could be a problem with the city. And if we don't have something specific in the code that could allow them to deny the business license, we might not be able to deny it. And we're just creating a problem that we know is likely to occur. And so the way it's at least attempted to be worded.
Is the wording that you have in there only applies then in those cases? Because
Yeah,
when I
so-
read it, I don't necessarily get that, but I'm not a lawyer, nor would I want to be one.
And maybe we could go there and look at it, but at least, and the wording that I recall is that the
It
criminal
does
charge
talk about
related
it.
to the business they were doing.
It does say that, but it seems like again, Just make sure, please, that it's not that we could deny for anyone.
And I agree. Someone who has a history should be able to operate a business. That's,
And then on line 933, it just says, now you can apply online, but I just want to know if people can also come in and apply with paper and pencil, because
We are trying to move away.
Microphone, please.
We are trying to move away from that.
I know,
If
but
they come in and apply online, then the coordinators have to input that information into the system, because the system will now send automatic renewal and invoices to these businesses through the email that we have on file, as well as emailing their licenses to them. So we avoid having to stuff 1,500 envelopes every 3 months and then mail licenses after the invoices. So everything has gone to online.
I know it's a good goal. I just would hate to deny a business to be in our city because for whatever reason that wasn't something that they were comfortable with or had the ability to do. And it's kind of like going to the metric system. It's probably a good idea. My son would tell you it's absolutely a good idea. And yes, we need to get there, but sometimes I think if we have just cut and dry, we eliminate some good opportunities. So,
Chair, if I can interject.
I think that was all of mine. Thank you.
Chair, if I can interject and answer that question a little bit more.
Please, Mayor.
I think we could do something real simple like we do with customer service and with the dumpsters. When people come in person, we provide them a computer they can enter and accomplish right there. They're there in person. We don't send them away and tell them they can't if they don't have a computer. So we can simply accommodate that. Even though it's done online, we could provide a computer for them.
Okay, I see we've got a couple other lights. I'm going to
If
go
I can
to.
elaborate on what the mayor said, I took a tour today as well of City Hall, and discussing it with Mr. Lee, we are going to have a kiosk outside of development with the computer that the business license coordinator can walk out with the client and fill that out online automatically. So that's already in place for the new City Hall.
All right, I'm going to go to Councilmember Jacob here in just a second, and then after he's done, I'm going to propose that if there's interest among the council, we can send this to a group of 3 to work together to bring back something more formalized. But Mr. Jacob.
Thanks. I was just actually going to agree with that last point on that Councilmember Whitelock brought up. In that there is probably a very small but not zero population that still likes to do things on paper. Granted, I know that means somebody has to type it in online. I get it, because that's just the way. That's where the records are kept. But there is a population out there who still writes checks when they go into the store. That still refuse to vote by mail, or register to vote online. They still insist on filling out the form. There's just and there's nothing wrong with that, right? That's just the way they choose to do their lives. So yes, the rest of the world is digitizing, but there is going to be those who should not be precluded from operating a business. And I just wonder if there is that one case where that person comes in and says, I want to fill out a paper application. We say no, and they sue. Like you're precluding me from operating a business in the city because you're not letting me apply for a license in the way I would want to. I don't know if they'd have grounds for a suit. Really, it's kind of, it'd be sketchy in my non-legal opinion, but it would be something I'd want to avoid. I would like to have the option available. Maybe they just fill it out on a piece of paper and then they'd give it to the person and they type it in on for them, whatever.
So there are a number of changes I would like to see to this as well, such as home-based businesses not having to post hours, and some of the others that have been mentioned. However, I would also be okay passing what we have now as a starting point because, as Councilmember Green mentioned, there's been a lot that's been cleaned up, a lot that's been wiped out. So if council wants to pass this and then continue to review and bring it back again, I'd be open to doing that. We can bring it back in a work session a little bit later, or if there are 3 that have a number of notes and updates they want to make, we can do something similar to what we did with the update to the rules and have an ad hoc council committee work on that and then send it to Mr. Anderson to run through staff. We've got a couple different options. What route would the majority of the council like to go? Personally, I'd kind of like to see us pass what we have now and then come back with something more later. But if the majority would prefer to work through things before it's passed, we can do that too. Councilmember Green.
I'd rather do it all at once, because then staff have to do some changes and then they got to do more, and I'm not sure that that's fair to them. I'm gonna move, since I got the mic on, I'm gonna move to refer this to an ad hoc committee established, and that the ad hoc committee bring it back no later than the third meeting in July.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Councilmember Green, second by Councilmember Whitelock. Discussion to the motion? Councilmember Jacob.
I'm not necessarily opposed to the motion, but I think this is a substantial enough step forward that I would like to start from where this one's leaving off instead of where this one is starting. So I'd be more in favor of passing it and then working off of that one. You can still go to the committee, still work on the changes. You're not giving the staff any more work. They already did this. So any changes you make is going to be, changes to this or changes to that. Doesn't matter. It's the same thing. So I would like to see this pass, just because I think it's a major step in the right direction, and then we can work off of that for the committee to work on. So that's just my 2 cents.
Similar to Councilmember Jacob, I think this addresses enough pain points to where this could be materially beneficial for the next few months while the committee reviews. The other thing is, as we're preparing for the meeting, I'm looking at what's out here, and some of it's in purple, some of it's in yellow. Staff has been trying to keep track. Well, what came from the meeting in December? What came from the other meeting? They're trying to keep where the different comments are coming in from. And I think it might be easier just to have a clean slate. So as a council, we can say, we've reviewed this. We're generally favorable with this. Start with a shorter version, renumber lines, and get a little bit of a cleaner start. That was my thought. Councilmember Whitelock.
I would be happy for whoever on this ad hoc committee is to start with what staff gave us, but I'm a little uncomfortable saying yes to what I've been given.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other lights, so we'll go to Ms. Quick for a vote, and then after that vote, we'll still be on this item, but we can quickly ask who would like to be part of that ad hoc committee. Assuming it passes. Ms. Quick.
Councilmember Worden. Oh, you bet. I have that we are referring this ordinance to an ad hoc committee established and to bring it back no later than the third meeting in July. Is that correct, Councilmember Green?
No.
Okay, so you voted no. Thank you. And Councilmember Whitelock?
Yes.
Councilmember Green?
Yes.
Chair McConaughey?
No.
Councilmember Pack?
No.
Councilmember Jacob?
No.
Vice Chair Bloom?
No.
I show that motion failed 2-5.
Councilmember Jacob.
I move to approve ordinance 2312.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Jacob, second by Councilmember Worthen. We'll start discussion to the motion with Councilmember Green.
Only if only if we establish a committee that will further look at that as part of the motion.
Councilmember Jacob.
Just to respond to that as the maker of the motion, I will actually leave that to the discretion of leadership, how they want to proceed with making a committee or how they want to proceed with reviewing this. So I'll leave the motion as is for now.
All right. And to provide transparency to the council, I'm still of the same mindset that as soon as there's a decision on this motion, I would like to find 3 folks who are willing to continue to work on this, because it appears that there are still a number of changes the council would desire. So regardless of whether it's included in the motion or not, I will be asking who would participate on that ad hoc committee. I'm not seeing any other lights, so I'll look to Ms. Quick for a motion. For a vote. I think the motion's already been taken care of. It's getting late.
So this time we're approving the ordinance as is, correct? Thank you. And Councilmember Pack,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitelock,
No.
Vice Chair Bloom,
Yes.
Chair McConaughey,
Aye.
Councilmember Green,
No.
Councilmember Worthen,
Yes.
and Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
I show that motion passes 5-2. Thank you.
All right, now related to this item, I move that the council establish an ad hoc committee to review general business regulation and license requirements and bring back recommendations to the council.
I'll second that one.
Motion by Councilmember McConaughey, second by Councilmember Green. Discussion to the motion? Seeing none. I don't know if this can be an all in favor or not.
There's no resolution.
Okay, there's no resolution, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We have established an ad hoc committee to review business licensing code, and now I would like to know who would like to. All right, we've got Councilmember Green, Councilmember Bloom, Councilmember Whitelock. Would you also like to serve on that?
I will if you need me to, but I don't necessarily care.
I very much appreciated your attention to detail, and you're hitting on some of the same concerns I had. If you're amenable to serving there, I personally would very much welcome that if you have time and capability.
I can do it.
Okay. Is there any opposition from the council from these three working together to bring recommendations back to the council? All right. We will proceed that way. We don't require a formal motion for that. And Mayor Burton.
While Brock is still here, there's been a couple of changes. Don't leave yet. With his staff, and as you may know, Marcia, who's been here for longer than some of others, is leaving our city and is retiring soon. So this may be the last time you get to see her. So I want Brock to let you know some of the changes that are happening and give you an opportunity to say thank you to Marcia for the fine service she's done in our city for the last few years and the little party that Brock has got planned for her.
So, Chair, I would like to ask for a moment of personal privilege to allow Mr. Hudson to speak to us.
I'm not sure personal privilege is the right action.
Well, we need
but
something.
All in favor of deviating from the agenda momentarily to allow us to hear from Mr. Hudson? All in favor?
Aye.
I don't hear any opposed. Mr. Hudson, the microphone's yours.
Thank you, Chair. As most of you know, Marcia's been here for 19 years with the city. She is retiring. I think April 3rd is her final day. And we have been fortunate enough to pick two folks to take over the business license coordinator positions. As you know, Barbara Larson also left and went to Teddersville City. So you guys could come on up. Come on. Hey, I'm up here, you're up here. Come on. So this is James Walker, goes by Jim, and he will be taking one of the positions as well as Glory, which most of you probably already know. She is, that's right. They have taken over and they have been being trained by Marcia for the last 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. They are doing a fantastic job up to this point. They've learned a lot in a short amount of time. And I really appreciate what they've put forth towards this. I think we'll have a successful group going forward once we have a code to go forward on.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Look forward to working with you in this new capacity. Also kind of interesting to see the tradition of fantastic folks being hired by Public Works just to get poached elsewhere.
I would like to say something, please.
Please, Councilmember Worthy.
So I think it's impressive, Marcia, that two people need to take your job. Bravo. And I mean, yeah, you still look as good as you did 20 years ago when my husband applied for his business license, and you have been amazing. You explain things very easily, very compassionately, and I have very much appreciated working with you throughout the years when I was at my own husband doing his business, and when I was with the chamber. You've always been excellent to work with, and just a smiling, happy face, and we're gonna miss you. And it's still, no way should you be retiring. I mean, come on, lady.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Unless there are any other lights, we'll move on, and I'm not seeing any others, so we'll now talk about ordinance 23-11, which is about conditional use permits and appeals. Looks like Mr. Gardner is going to be speaking to us on this one. I know right out of the chutes, Councilmember Green has
I've got
some
a
questions.
I'm going to ask a question before we get Larry to start. Conditional use is normally a land use. If we're going to consider that, has to be a public hearing. So do we need, isn't that right, Duncan? This is a land use. We should be holding a public hearing.
So, Mr. Murray, for those who may be listening to the recording after, could you quickly step up to the microphone?
So, yes, that is correct. For a land use regulation, it has to be under, if you look at state code and city code combined, I mean, state code says just the public hearing at the planning commission level. Our code says we also need a public hearing at the council level. My understanding is that we either had a public hearing here before or we intended to have one today, but it's obviously not scheduled for a public hearing today.
I'm going, because we need a public hearing, and maybe it'll give staff more time because of the proposed substitute, I'm going to move that we post, go ahead, Alan.
Chair, may I?
Yes, please, Mr. Anderson.
November 16th, there was a public hearing that was held on conditional use permits, and at that point, the attorney at the time, which was Rob Wall, had suggested it needed to be more expansive. So that's why we did not list it as a public hearing, is because a public hearing had already been held.
Because there's been some substantial changes, and even with the one version, there's been some substantial changes, and I proposed a few more. I'm going to move that we postpone this to so that we can hold a new public hearing and and to be scheduled at the discretion of leadership.
We have a motion. Is there a second? And motion dies for lack of a second. All right. Mr. Gardner, would you care to present?
Okay, so thank you, council. Ordinance 2311 would modify West Jordan City Code to be in harmony with Utah Code Section 109A507. Duncan Murray is here to talk about the law. If you have questions about the law, he's an attorney, I'm not. I will quickly go through some of the changes of the ordinance. I won't go through them all. The council has that in their packet. And line 18, 1371. For years, Utah law was changed probably a decade ago that talked about detrimental impacts. The law changed to call them detrimental effects. And so it's a conditional use can be used to mitigate reasonably anticipated detrimental effects. One thing to bear in mind is that the detrimental effect does not have to be eliminated. It just has to be mitigated if the planning commission or the approving body determines that there is indeed detrimental effects. Lines 36 through 60 just changes some of the submittal requirements. Probably the biggest change is line 54 that adds a paragraph that where the city will determine if the application is complete before the substantive review before the the planning commission or the zoning administrator. That is something that is going to be really poignant going forth, particularly with the new changes in the state law that staff is going to have to be very careful about making sure that all applications are complete before it moves through the process. Line 76, 1376, action by the planning commissioner zoning administrator. Let me make sure I didn't miss something there. And so I talked about detrimental effects. So what needs to be done by the approving body now is that detrimental effects need to be identified. If there is identification of detrimental effects, then conditions to mitigate that detrimental effect need to be established. Now, like I said, the detrimental effect does not have to be eliminated. It is at the discretion, and Duncan, correct me if I'm wrong, it's at the discretion of the approving body as to whether the detrimental effects are even conditioned. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that a conditional use permit, it doesn't mean that it cannot be issued if there are detrimental effects. And once the detrimental conditions mitigating the detrimental effect are identified, it needs to be stated clearly on the record of either the planning commission or the zoning administrator. And if you go to line number 123, 1377, instead of findings for approval, it is now changed to criteria for approval. Many of these are just, many of the other sections, I think the effectiveness of a conditional use permit, it was 15 days, now it's 16 days. Probably one of the big changes in the ordinance is the conditional use appeal and revocation authority. Currently, if someone has been issued a conditional use permit by the planning commission or the zoning administrator, the planning commission would have to make a recommendation to the community development director to revoke the conditional use permit. That will be replaced by the administrative law judge that the city has, or it says the mayor retains a contract under another individual or individuals to revoke the conditional use permit. That will be now under the jurisdiction of the administrative law judge. And so that is a major change. It no longer goes back for a recommendation to the planning commission, or the planning commission is not the revoking body under this ordinance change. It will now be the administrative law judge. And then there are some appeal, the Board of Adjustment used to be the appeal if a conditional use permit was revoked. That has been changed with this ordinance. The appeal now for a revoked conditional use permit would go right to the district court. Is that correct, Duncan? Right to the district court. That is the summary of the ordinance before you. I do know that there was some substitutions, which I have no issue with at all. I will try to answer your questions. Duncan Murray is probably better, but I will stand here and try to answer them if you have any questions. Thank you.
Just waiting for Councilmember Green to hit his button.
I'm not going to ask any questions. I was just going to make some comments. As Mr. Gardner alluded, over the weekend, you notice I sent out a substitution, trying to you know that I have nothing better to do on a weekend, particularly on a Saturday during ski season, than sit and read property rights ombudsman decisions for the majority of the day. Or there's something wrong with me mentally, but you all know that. So I proposed a substitution to help clean up some language, particularly in the criteria, because it still required the planning commission to make findings. And one of the findings was that it was we don't make findings that the conditional use is consistent with the general plan. What we have to do is make findings that the detrimental effects don't impact the intent of the general plan. So there was some clarifying language there. I also went through and the property ombudsman in the Utah Supreme Court, at least if the property ombudsman quotes the Utah Supreme Court accurately, would prefer that the standards be more specific. So on a couple of things in the standards were the detrimental effects. I tried to add some more specific standards to that. And then at the same time, one of the things that I did learn is that our ordinance doesn't comply with state statute because our ordinance puts the burden of proof on the applicant for the conditional use. Property ombudsman and state law requires that it's the city's burden of proof based on substantial evidence to make sure that the conditions are imposed correctly, because there has to be substantial evidence to impose the conditions. And so we really do need to put the burden on the city, that if we're going to impose additional conditions, that we have the substantial evidence to meet that. Otherwise, it's not going to be, it's not going to meet state law. And then there were a couple of minor changes in the appeal, in the fact that if there's going to be an appeal from either staff or from on the Board of Adjustment or to the administrative law judge, that the ordinance talked about that it wasn't in de novo review, but I think we need to be also clear that it has to be based on substantial evidence. Otherwise, we haven't met the criteria. It's not just a hearing on the record, but when we make that clarification, I think the courts, at least the way I read the Northern Monticello Association versus, I'm glad we don't live in San Juan County, by the way, did I say that? There has to be substantial evidence for, and that the substantial evidence in the record has to be developed by the right people. If we don't, we end up, the planning commissions and cities end up having difficulty with the court. So I would ask you to look at the substitute, because it clarifies things. It also, one of the things that I will highlight is that it also says that if the planning commission can't find a detrimental effect, they don't have to create a condition. And it also complies with state law that we really can't add conditions that somebody already has to, if they have to abide by city ordinance with the building code, that's not a condition because they already have to comply with it. And the property ombudsman has consistently ruled that those kinds of conditions should not be added or enforced. So I would ask that we look at the substitute, and either, and as Councilmember McConaughey pointed out to me earlier, this actually was supposed to be brought to a committee of the whole and not to be passed tonight. So I'm wondering if we don't want to have some further discussions on the substitute and then move forward at a later night.
So as Councilmember Green mentioned, the minutes from the last meeting where this was discussed, the motion that passed, Vice Chair Green moved to refer ordinance 22-49 at that time to the committee of the whole, and that was voted in favor unanimously, with the exception of Councilmember Whitelock, who was not present at that meeting. So one option is we could bring this back to a committee of the whole, where we can have a little more dialogue and conversation. However, if the majority of the council are comfortable with the alternate, I was impressed how quick that was provided to the council for review, but it didn't have a chance to sit there where the public could view it. I'd like to have the attorney's office formally look at anything. So my thought was either A, we can bring this back to a conversation for the committee of the whole, or B, if we're relatively comfortable with the alternate, we could ask Mr. Anderson to coordinate with the mayor's staff to review, recommend, and bring that back to us at a time that that would be appropriate. So thoughts from the council,
I am very much okay with option B. I really like what I read through over the weekend of what you've done. A lot of clarification, and I really liked it. Thank you for the hard work on that.
Councilmember Whitelock.
I also liked B. I like your last suggestion of having it go back through.
All right. Would someone like to make that motion? Councilmember Green.
Let's see if I can capture that. I move.
Moving to direct.
So I'm not going to direct staff.
No, council office. We're directing council
Move to have council office work with the mayor's office on option B to clarify and work through option B and bring it back to the council for a vote at a time determined by council leadership. And at a time that will hold a public hearing. Just because there's so many changes.
Second for discussion. I was going to ask if the council would like to have another public hearing. Do we want time during the meeting for public to speak, or do we want formal noticing like other public hearings, knowing the impact on staff?
I want whatever the attorney's office thinks we should do done.
So the attorney's office, or Mr. Murray had suggested that with the public hearing that we had in November, we would be clear. But Mr. Dodd, your recommendation?
I think legally we would be clear with the hearing we had because it is the same sections, even though there was edits and, made to the proposals. The sections that are being edited are the same that, took place in November. And so if someone had comments or thoughts as to, those sections, they could have made those comments. So legally, I think we're okay, but also there's not a concern to hold two public meetings on the matter.
My concern in bringing it up was mostly the impact it has on staff for noticing.
I'll amend my motion and remove the public hearing section.
Okay. That second was mine, wasn't it? Okay, second stands. Any other discussion to the motion? Councilmember Jacob.
Can I just have it read back what we're voting on, just so I'm 100% clear?
This is what I got. This is what I captured, okay? Councilmember Green moved to have council office work with the mayor's office to clarify option B and bring it back to the council for a vote at a time determined by council leadership. Does that clarify, or is that what you said?
That is accurate.
Okay, thank you.
Clarify what option B is, please.
Option B was to bring it back to a city council meeting rather than a committee of the whole.
As Chair McConaughey outlined to you, you were given two options. Option B, and I've written that in the minutes, was let's see.
Option
to
B is the
have-
substitute.
Have the alternate language provided by Council Member Green be reviewed and brought back. Is that good enough in the minutes? Okay, great.
All right, any other discussion to the motion? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So let's carry on to our next.
Thanks,
item.
Larry, for putting up with you and Scott and Duncan for putting up with us. Brock, I don't know why you stuck around.
All right.
Mayor, can I direct them to go home?
So our next item is, we have a series of resolutions, resolutions 23-019 through 23-032. Tomorrow, we have an appreciation dinner for those folks who have served on the General Plan Committee. And as part of our appreciation, we thought it would be appropriate to have a resolution of gratitude from the council for each individual member of that General Plan Committee to thank them for the time and the effort that they spent. That document, the general plan, drives so much of what we do when it comes to development, when it comes to land use. It's so frequently referenced and recognized, it seemed appropriate. So there's not a request for council action because there would be a lot of them, but that's the intention behind these resolutions. I'm happy to submit a motion, or if there's questions, comments, if someone else wants to submit a motion, Councilmember Green.
I just wanted to make the motion as the general plan chair to approve resolutions number 23-019 through resolution number 23-031.
Then I'll second it as the vice chair.
Councilmember Green with the motion, Councilmember Whitelock with the second, although Councilmember Pack and Councilmember Bloom looked like they were pretty close to offering one as well. Okay, since these are resolutions, I'm not seeing any other lights, we'll look to Ms. Quick for
There's a light.
Councilmember Worthen.
I just want to know if there'll be cake. I'm just joking. Appreciation should always have cake. Just saying.
Chair has noted the need for cake. We'll see what can be done. Councilmember Pack.
Well, thank you. It's always nice to gather and exchange ideas and show appreciation. I want to ensure that that is the main event, not the business meeting. While it's nice to debrief, I just want to ensure that, especially since this is an opportunity to bring a +1, that it isn't like a high school reunion where you're bringing your +1 and they don't really know anybody there.
I can walk through the agenda with you. Any other discussion to the motion? All right, Ms. Quick.
Councilmember Whitelock.
Yes.
Councilmember Worthen.
Yes, with cake.
Councilmember Pack.
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
Chair McConaughey.
With ice cream going along with that cake.
And Vice Chair Bloom.
Yes.
Councilmember Green.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes 7-0.
All right, now I know we had paper copies of that resolution, those resolutions that were going among the council to sign. Has everybody have all the signatures been captured? Awesome, you guys are awesome, thank you. Okay, we have consent items next, and just before people start getting too excited about seeing where we're at in the agenda, please recall that we do have an RDA board meeting that follows this one. So, consent items, this shows my name on there. But I'm going to look at Mr. Anderson for the consent items.
Yeah, this is, A is obviously the minutes of the prior meeting, if you've had a chance on that. The second one, the last meeting, the council had made some suggestions to the grant agreement between the Cultural Arts Society of West Jordan and the city. Staff believes that we have captured those ideas that you had suggested and have placed that on the consent calendar. Ms. Steck is here if you have any further questions.
The one question I do have is not about the resolution, but it's about the minutes. Ms. Quick had noted that there was a typo chair with the chair name, but I believe that's been resolved and doesn't need anything necessarily called out in the motion to pass it, correct?
That's correct. I've made that correction.
Thank you. Any other questions about the consent items, or is there perhaps a motion from the council?
I'll move to approve item 7, the consent items.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Green. Almost a second by Councilmember Whitelock, actual second by Councilmember Bloom. We do have a resolution here, so it does require a vote. Ms. Quick.
Thank you, Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
Councilmember Pack.
Yes.
Councilmember Worthen.
Yes.
Vice Chair Bloom.
Yes.
Councilmember Whitelock.
Yes.
Councilmember Green.
Yes.
And Chair McConaughey.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes 7-0.
All right, that brings us to council remarks. Is there anybody who would like to make comments before we move from this meeting to the next?
Yeah, I just.
Councilmember Worthen, I'm shocked.
Yes. I just wanted to make a couple of points. The mayor brought up the meeting that we hope Craig Daring is not listening to. That is on Tuesday, March 28th at 12:30 p.m. at Summit Vista, which is actually in Taylorsville, but that's where he lives. So it's what it is. And then Marcia, for her retirement party, is Thursday, March 30th at 2 p.m. at Public Works. So if you guys were just interested in attending any of those, there you go.
Thank you. Councilmember Pack, then Councilmember Bloom.
Great, thank you. Happy spring to everyone. Hopefully it'll warm up here. I love all 4 seasons in Utah, but in the middle of a long winter, it's nice to have
Four seasons happened yesterday.
the emergence of spring, and happy Ramadan, which commenced at sundown today. I was able to finish up a course that I mentioned a couple of council meetings ago on high-level decision-making analytics. It was really interesting to plug in some situations that we are encountering in city council and see pros and cons and trying to mesh logic and emotion, the heart and the mind, and so it was a really good exercise in being able to assess different perspectives. And since we've been speaking about the business licensing process this evening, again, kudos to our wonderful staff. I received the updated emails relative to my home-based businesses, and it's all digital now, and it was really slick, was able to just do it very expeditiously. I'm sure it saves a lot of cost from the city standpoint, not having to prepare paper mailings. As Councilmember Jacob mentioned, it would be important to be able to meet people where they need to be met in terms of updating. I can think of a family member that I have who recently moved into a retirement community, and then summarily the administration said, hey, for your convenience, we're putting everything digitally for your payments. Well, here are 80 and 90-year-old demographic individuals who might not have as much facility with that. So I'm sure there might be some situation there, but just wanted to give praise to how we strive to update and be more efficient. And lastly, just speaking toward the Fire Ops 101 training, wonderful. It was my second time being able to be blessed to participate in that activity. New this year was the extrication opportunity, where we got to use the jaws of life to see what our great employees have to go through mentally, emotionally, physically with that. And we were able to go out to the Unified area in Magna, where we went to Sandy last time, to crawl on hands and knees and hold hose and put out fires. It was wonderful. So I just want to thank the fire department as well as all of our great volunteers and employees, because I know a lot of them weren't on duty. Even if they were on duty, it was a lot of work, but many of them volunteered 8 hours of their time. Bam Davis sang an amazing national anthem, and Tom McComey was on bags and pipe, and then Dave Montoya and Kent Warner. I'm telling you that the brisket and the beans and the cornbread, I remember that from 2 years ago, so they could do that professionally. But great people. We have so much institutional knowledge with our fabulous employees. I really believe that it's less expensive to retain good employees than to obtain new ones and to update equipment that ultimately will save costs in the long run. So I was honored to be a part of that day. So thank you to all involved. I think that the more that we get to know each other, and especially if residents also were able to get to know our wonderful staff members, that there would be a lot more camaraderie. Inherently, there seems to be a negativity sometimes toward government, people who work in government. But I feel if we can interact with each other, we'd see we're all people just trying to do our jobs well, trying to make a difference in the community at the same time. So thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Bloom, then Councilmember Green.
And I had to piggyback on the fire ops. It was a wonderful day, and seeing the passion and love that firefighters have for our community and for the work they do. Seeing the Lucas device firsthand was absolutely incredible. But I really want to thank the fire department for all the little details, all the hard work behind, putting our names on our hats and making sure that we were taken care of in every step of the way. And Chris, thank you for your video. I can't tell you how many times I've shown it to people. He made a video of us actually going into the fire. And I appreciate it because it really solidifies the dangerous work that our fire department does, and the medical aspect of it, and hearing how they feel about Mountain View corridor and all of that. It is such a valuable lesson for us to see how our tax dollars are being used to keep our city safe on all aspects, and I appreciate that. And I know Bam isn't hearing this, and he's not going to know this yet, but I am vying for him to sing the national anthem in Western Stampede because he was incredible. And there was a few other things I had to say and I can't remember, but Fire Ops 101 was absolutely valuable, and I was really, really am grateful I had a chance to participate.
Councilmember Green.
Just a couple of quick things. For those of you that are still here, thank you for still being here. You must have the same problems I have. I don't know why you'd still be here, but thanks for being here. I wish I could have attended Fire Ops 101, but health problems have prevented me from doing much of anything anymore. So I look forward to that sometime in here near future. And last but not least, I'd like to give my appreciation to the city attorney's office. They do a great job with a minimal amount of staff, and they have to put up with my legal arguments. Paul, we need to talk about the one, but it's great when you can have that discussion back and forth, and it's open, and there's no retribution, and there's no what it comes down to is what's best for the city and what's the best policy. And I think we're going to get there. I really do. I look forward to the one-on-one meetings where we can have some banter, particularly with the new city attorney. I know he was included on that one, on the one emails, and he was probably, Josh is wondering, what did I get myself into? So glad you're here, and thanks for reading my emails.
Councilmember
I'm
Wortman.
sorry, I forgot my shout out. So I did need to, I wanted to give a shout out to Jeremy. Just kidding, Josh. I totally embarrassed myself and introduced him as Jeremy, our new city attorney. I really didn't realize you hadn't started working with us. He has been coming to all these meetings and coming to some other stuff with actually for free. Can you believe that? He doesn't even get paid to be here. So welcome. We're very happy to be able to get to know you. The fact that you did fire ops, yeah, that's tough. I mean, I did it 2 years ago, and it makes me appreciate my cushy office job. I literally just had a constituent text me saying we should put cake into a city ordinance. So if we want to look at that maybe in the future. And then also,
would you accept a friendly amendment to include ice cream?
Yes, we could add ice cream. Quite literally had a constituent. I'm not going to throw that person under the bus, but I did. And I believe, if my count's not incorrect, I have 26 meetings left after this one, and I'm just throwing out a personal note to two people in this room that I know will understand: Costco and Waterwall. Thank you.
All right. So as far as administrative items, just a heads up, The next regular city council meeting we have is scheduled for April 12th, at which point Ms. Steck is trying to break the budget apart into more manageable pieces. So well ahead of the deadline, she's going to be bringing us the mayor's budget for the Municipal Building Authority, Fairway Estates, and the redevelopment agency. So we'll have the preliminary budgets on April 12th to receive. One of them will have a placeholder because we still need a tax number from the county, but it gives us an opportunity to get things moving ahead just a little bit more quickly. So huge thanks to Ms. Steck for that. Watch for that. And with that,
I am going to move to adjourn the city council meeting so that we can move to the RDA meeting.
I'll second it.
We were all like, wait.
in the interest of extending the meeting out as long as possible, we'll wait for a second. But we do have a motion from Councilmember Green, a second by Councilmember Whitelock. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, I will adjourn the city council meeting and call to order the redevelopment agency meeting. Again, it's March 22nd, 2013. All members of the board are present. We're also joined by council staff and by the mayor and members of the mayor's office.
I'm going to move to approve the consent items.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Did not hear anyone who didn't chime in. I will move that passes. First business item is identifying the agency officers for the calendar year. Councilmember, I can give a little more detail unless.
I am going to move pursuant to the RDA bylaws that Council Chair McConaughey and Vice Chair Bloom be designated as the RDA board chair and vice chair.
So for clarification, is that a motion to approve resolution 238?
Yes.
Second.
We have a motion by board member Green and a second by board member Whitelock. I see no lights, thankfully, so we'll turn to Ms. Quick for a vote on that.
Okay. I'm trying to think of what to call you. Board
Board.
Member McConaughey,
Aye.
Board Member Jacob,
Yes.
Board Member Whitelock,
Yes.
Board Member Green,
Yes.
Board Member Bloom,
Yes.
Board Member Pack,
Yes.
and Board Member Worthen.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes 7-0.
All right, next business item is item B, resolution 237, which will be, just want to double check, we got the motions right because it was 238 and then we're backing up to 237. Okay, good. Mr. Pengra is going to talk to us about resolution 237, authorizing purchase and sale of some property. Mr. Pengra.
Sorry, Board Member McConaughey, if I may speak to this real quick.
Please, Mr. Lee.
Let me just introduce this item. As you know, we have been in talks with Peterson Development about selling a portion of the Bodenvest property to them as part of the RDA purchase of that larger Bodenvest property. We have been in negotiations with Peterson for some time. They have come back at our request and made all of the adjustments to the property acquisition proposal based on feedback we got from the board members at a prior meeting. In addition to purchasing this property and separate as a city transaction as part of the broader negotiation, Peterson's will deed to the city also a nuisance strip or protection strip in a different part of the city that has been remaining and been something that's needed to be cleaned up. That's not on here. That's a quick claim deed to the city. It does not need RDA board action, but that is part of this. I'll turn it over to Chris to let him clarify and explain what is proposed this evening, but we feel very good about this. We think it has accomplished everything that the city council has requested, or excuse me, that the RDA board has requested.
Mr. Pengra.
Chair, if I may interrupt this, Council Director Anderson. We
Sounds
need,
good.
Sorry, but council director has no standing in an RDA meeting. Are you the board? Are you the board something?
we have a technical issue. We need to stop the recording in Prime Gov and commence the recording for the RDA so it works with the portal. It'll just take a second.
Okay, I will be timing, but if there's a motion from
I'm
the
gonna
board.
move to take a 5-minute break.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second for a 5-minute break, which would mean we would reconvene no later than, I'll round up to 6, so 8:44. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No?